before the rains come, it can be very sort of barren looking. But here, middle, end of winter, when things are very dry, if you have a fire that starts for whatever reason, then it can go quite big and quite severe. Otherwise, sometimes in the spring, when the first rains come, if there's still enough dry material, dry grass and so on, then the lightning can cause fires sometimes, and that will also burn quite a bit, depending on how much fuel is available, obviously. But more specific, Daz, to your question, we've had one very serious fire here in the time of Wild Earth, and it was actually before the first drives yet. So it was, I think, I can't remember which month it was, September or October, maybe October. We were already building a few things, so I think it must have been October 2006. We were not far from here, a place that subsequently we called Hell's Gate. There's a mast still standing there just here between Impala Plains and Rebecca's Road, Zoe's Road. And it's a bit of a long story, but it was an accidental fire. You know, we'd done all the precautions we could think of. We should have thought of more, I guess, but it was a very hot day. It was hotter than today. It was about 36, 37 degrees Celsius. The wind was blowing at 35 kilometers an hour, a very strong wind. Excuse me, thank you. And the humidity was very low. It wasn't humid at all. It was very dry. So if you could script the perfect conditions for a big runaway fire, it was that. It was hot. It was no humidity. The wind was blowing very strongly, and the fire started from where we were, and within about 30 seconds, it was burning quite a few acres area. And it was a massive fire, and then it burned all the way down to the Mala Mala boundary. We finished it. It was about 11:30 that morning that it started, and only the next day really was it finished. So we've had some serious fires, and then everyone groups together and make sure that everything's protected. There's fire breaks and various things to stop it with, and it's not often we have that kind of fire. It was just the conditions on that day was terrible. But normally natural fires, lightning and so on, can be controlled a bit easier. Here's some marula fruits before I forget. That's what they look like. You can see sort of a bit smaller than chicken eggs, about the size of a golf ball depending on the fruit. Some are bigger than others. Quite a smooth texture of the skin. I'm going to take a couple back actually. These are particularly nice ones. Now, asking about the taste earlier, these are actually, in this specific case, not too bad. There hasn't been an elephant past here for a day or two, so there's some good ripe ones. And luckily we've got another big tree this side, so they've been in the shade, so they're not too warm. The best way to eat them as well, you take it's like a lychee, the same sort of approach. You take the top end, there's the part where it's attached to the tree. Take that end. Sorry, so like I said, it's a bit of a tangy, soury, tangy taste. Now it's quite a sort of a almost jelly-like. Maybe that's a better word to use. Like a jelly. Like imagine if you had a very fibrous, like a mango, but even more jelly, more moist than that. There you can see the thickness of the skin, maybe just as a comparison, and then a very hard pip inside. So once you've got the top off it like that, well, that's quite a nice shot of it actually. Hold it still. There we go. I should cut my nails as well. Now, once you've got that out, take the whole thing in your mouth with that end towards your teeth. Here's the shell. And you sort of play around the mouth a little bit, suck on it a bit. Can't really chew it much. Until you get down to them. And you can really, if you really want to, you can try and chew the flesh off as well. But mostly it's just the juice that's really nice. This is a good tree. It's got the good ones. And that's a marula. They're also great for throwing at things. So I spilled a little bit of the juice, obviously because it's very high in sugar, it's a bit sticky. But it's a really pleasant taste. I mean, I didn't drink water there because of the taste. The taste is really lovely. Eh? Where is it? Okay. Whatever elephant's going to come past is going to have a good time. There hasn't been something eating these marillas for a couple of days, not even baboon tracks. There's another butterfly. If it stays, they're not always easy to see, but this one seems like it might stick around. The African monarch. Hello Ruth. I'm going to ask you a question in a second. Let's have a look at that roller if it sticks around. It's such beautiful light this afternoon and obviously very blue skies as well. And arguably one of the most striking birds and certainly one of the most known birds here in southern Africa. Lilac-breasted roller. Ruth was just asking with regards to getting out of the vehicle. She's been on safari in East Africa and they weren't allowed to get out the vehicles. Certainly the same would apply for someone that's just visiting here on safari. If they were on their own vehicles, let's say Kruger and so on, the rules are quite strict with remaining in the vehicle. If you're on safari here at the lodges, then well, they tell you not to get out the vehicles while you're on drive for safety reasons, but you could, at all these lodges here, you can do walking safaris. After breakfast they take you for shorter strolls, maybe an hour or two, show you some of the surrounding and tracks and so on, and you could see any of the big game on that. And other reserves you can do long hiking trails. Pilanesberg, where I worked, or parts of Kruger as well, you can go for 2, 3 hour, 4 hour hikes in the mornings as opposed to game drive. So it's not because it's safer here, perhaps just where you were in East Africa, the specific place you were at, they were very careful about it, or they also said your guide never got out the vehicle. Maybe during a specific time there was a necessity for it, or perhaps you just didn't want to. But the safety is for someone that's not used to the environment at all. It could be dangerous if you don't know what to look for and how to look for it, but if you know what you're doing and you're used to it and you've spent enough time out here, then I honestly feel as safe or safer getting out the vehicle anywhere here than I would in any city. And it's not because I'm worried about cities, it's just that if you're aware of your environment, then it's not really a problem. But I wouldn't suggest you just come on safari and start running around. Well, the roller gave us a front view, but now the back view is not quite as colourful, but a beautiful bird nonetheless. Thanks, Lieschen. I think it was Connie asking about temporal secretions, those lines we could see sort of between the eye and the ear of the elephant. You could see these dark lines coming down, and that is something that's very often associated with must behavior in the bulls. Must is that condition that Mario was asking about earlier. Yeah, Connie, it's not always the case. In other words, you can have secretions for other reasons as well. I mean, you get secretions actually a lot more often or a lot more commonly with cows or female elephants. In this case, it's quite hot, and that could be a little bit of stress for the elephant, and it could be because of that. Sometimes just stress. If one bull was pushing around another one, you might find the young bull getting a little bit of secretion as well. So it's not just from must behavior. The must behavior would normally be very heavy secretions, and then combined with that dribbling, that the penile sac dribbling, that almost like a greenish urine coming out the whole time, so wet back legs and so on. And then Anita is asking about, this was the two parts, I think just the one part of the question. Anita, always nice to hear from you. Anita's also been part of the Jigga for a long time, I think even before the Jigga, from the tank days. Asking what animals are there in Namibia that you won't see at Djuma. Well, not that many differences to start with. Obviously it depends on where you go in Namibia. But I think the great majority of wildlife in southern Africa are in many ways quite similar. But Namibia obviously offers, if you go to the real desert areas, very different things. But the general sort of bushveld, there's habitats very similar to this in many parts of Namibia, the northern and northeastern parts. Animals that you won't see at Djuma, depends on where you go in Namibia as well. But let's talk about the sort of the more wildlife intense areas that I really enjoy. Etosha National Park, fantastic. Kodam, which is to the eastern parts, and then more up to the Caprivi. You've got some fantastic reserves there as well. What you will see there that you won't see here, black rhino. That goes for Damaraland and Etosha. You can see black rhino, which is fantastic. Kemsbach, yeah, depending on which part you go to. Etosha certainly, Kemsbach. Yeah, they're flying around again. I wonder if you should just go and... Nothing. Yeah. I'm just going to take a little drive in here. Back to Leah from earlier, Mark, just seeing it again. Yeah, thanks, Lieschen. Brown hyena. I mean, there's also things like that you could see here, but you know, some things might be more frequent. In other words, you're much less likely to see leopard in most parts of Namibia, well, most parts of Africa for that matter. But you're very likely to see cheetah more often. There's great habitats for cheetah because it tends to be more open. Gemsbok or oryx, as Mark mentioned just now as well, that's the antelope we see a lot up there. Eland. Yeah. But it's just the difference of settings really. It's more savanna-like, and then if you go towards some of the semi-arid and arid areas, you know, even if you just see a line, it's just that it's desert or semi-desert, makes it very different from this experience. But the richness of wildlife is it's as good as it gets here in the Sabi Sands. It's a very, very rich area. I would compare it maybe to parts of the northeastern parts of Namibia. Let's have a little bit of a look around. It's sort of just throwing a stick in the bush kind of thing.